Venezuela's political organizations will formalize their inscription for the parliamentary elections. The mayor of Rochester, New York, suspended the officers involved in the suffocation of Daniel Prude, a black man hooded by police. Cyprus president denounced Turkey's aggressiveness and urged talks to resolve a road over maritime borders and gas drilling rights. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Laura Palmeiro. This Friday, Venezuela's political organizations will formalize their inclusion on the military elections that will take place on December 6. Spokespersons from opposing organizations have announced they will register their respective candidates for the legislative elections just when the deadline established by the National Electoral Council expires. The opposition leader, Enrique Capriles Rodonsky, called for the opposition to participate in the polls in order to make changes in the country. Capriles criticized the failed strategy of Juan Guaidó, who requested sanctions and blockades against the country, and also calls for abstentionism. Colombian Attorney General's office announced on Thursday that the prosecutor, Gabriel Jaimes, will assume the investigation against former President Alvaro Uribe, who is accused of alleged crimes of bribery and fraud. Jaimes will be in charge of continuing this investigation due to his experience in cases of great connotation. He will assume the process with independence and autonomy. The announcement was made public shortly after the process against Uribe was transferred from the Supreme Court of Justice to the Attorney General Francisco Barbosa's office. The accusation against the far-right politician was made by Senator Iván Cepeda in 2014. The court decided that Uribe should remain under house arrest as long as his legal situation is clarified. Workers of Uruguay's public energy company UTE declared themselves in disputes against the budget cuts to the sector ordered by the central government. Our correspondent Mateo Grille has the details.
Uruguayan workers are concerned. The budget cut plans presented by the Uruguayan government cover almost all areas of the state, and public companies are not exempt. The public energy company, UTE, Workers' Union, is standing up against the cuts and in defense of the assets of all Uruguayans.
We are experiencing a difficult time. For a few years now, vacancy and investments in public companies have been cut. But now, with these new budgets, with these new budgetary instructions, the situation is going to get worse. We are defending public enterprise in the sense that we think that in these moments of crisis, of pandemic, is when the state most has to be expanded.
During this entire week, the group of UTE employees set up a tent at the company's headquarters to denounce what they described as terrible budget cuts, defined by the entity, both in investments and in personal hiring.
One of the most worrisome issues we see is staff cuts. For every 3 people who retire, only 1 will enter. Therefore, there will be a significant decline, a very important decline in terms of staff numbers in these years, and of course, it will become more complex. In addition to the reduction in operations and investment, there will be a reduction in electricity service for the entire population.
According to the union, the executive branch proposes a cut of $250 million in the company's budget between 2020 and 2021 alone, which will directly affect the population.
For 2020 and 2021, there is an estimated $250 million cut, 120 million in one year and 130 in another. But these cuts directly impact all electrical supplies, entire units too. In terms of personnel, and even the social unit will also be reduced, which works directly to regularize people in many neighborhoods who are illegally connected to the electricity supply.
The 5-year budget bill entered Parliament on Monday and will only be discussed in the Chamber of Deputies. For UTE workers, a stage of hard struggle begins with the objective of stopping what they understand to be an attempt to break up a company that belongs to all Uruguayans.
Argentina registered a new daily record on COVID-19 infections. Authorities reported 12,026 new cases. The Ministry of Health reported that until this day, the tally surpasses 451,000 cases, while the death toll stands at 9,300. Health authorities warned about the problems that the health system and the personnel caring for the pandemic in the country are facing amidst the spike in the COVID cases. Trinidad and Tobago's health ministry reported that the death toll stands at 29 in the country. According to the news briefing, the number of samples which have tested positive at public and private facilities in Trinidad and Tobago were 1,984. The total number of active cases is 1,255, and there was reported one new death for a total of 29. In Haiti, opposition leaders rejected the call of the Organization of American States, OAS, to hold elections in Haiti before 2021 and reiterated that the body is interfering in internal affairs once again. Lawyer André Michel, a spokesman for the popular and democratic sector, stated there is no possible coexistence with the ruling party and its allies, and stressed that the solution to the persistent national crisis is the mobilization and establishment of a transitional administration. Opposition platforms have been demanding for several months that the president conclude his term in 2021, arguing that the electoral cycle began a year before he took the office. Several parties in Haiti have already rejected the president's electoral plans to stay in power and stressed they will not accept elections whose results are known in advance. In Jamaica, the elections results showed the winning for the second time of Andrew Holness, who got the seat in the St. Andrews West Central Parliamentary constituency over People's National Party candidate Patrick Roberts. Earlier Thursday, PNP President Peter Phillips, Jamaica's opposition leader, said he would retire from politics and step down from his post if the PNP loses the general elections. With results still trickling in, the GLP leads in 49 seats, where the Social Democratic PNP has claimed 14. A total of 126 candidates contested 63 parliamentary seats in election convened by Holness just 3 weeks ago amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. The last general elections were held in 2016, where the Jamaica Labour Party secured 32 seats. Jamaican health authorities have reported over 2,000 COVID-19 cases and 27 fatalities. And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Lovely Warren, the mayor of Rochester in New York, says she's suspending the officers involved in the suffocation of Daniel Prude, a black man hooded by police, which has sparked anger and protest. She further urged the Attorney General to complete the investigation.
I am suspending the officers in question today against the advice of counsel, and I urge the Attorney General to complete her investigation. I understand that the union may sue the city for this. They shall feel free to do so. Actually, I've been sued 4 times from actions that I have taken against racist acts that I believe.
A new report details multiple instances of President Donald Trump making offensive remarks about the members of the U.S. military who have been captured or killed, including the American dead troops in First World War that are buried in the Aisne-Marne American Cemetery in France. In 2018, he said that those buried there as losers and suckers. The allegations were first reported in the American news outlet The Atlantic. A senior Defense Department official with first-hand knowledge at events and a senior U.S. Marine Corps officer who was told about Trump's comments confirmed some of the remarks to the Associated Press, including the 2018 cemetery comments. The defense official said that Trump made the comments as he backed off visiting the cemetery outside Paris during a meeting following his presidential daily briefing on the morning of November 10, 2018. The Atlantic also referred that Trump said that the former President George W. Bush was a loser because he was shot down by the Japanese as a Navy pilot in World War II. World Health Organization spokesperson Margaret Harris said she does not expect widespread immunization against the novel coronavirus until mid-2021, despite the growing expectations that a vaccine could be released within weeks.
Not only are we seeing a lot of different vaccines, we need to compare them head to head to see which one is really offering the best protection and the greatest safety levels as well. And so that's one of the important things WHO is doing. We've got a solidarity vaccine trial, and we are wanting to see all the data for all the different vaccines now being trialed in people compared with each other so that we've got a clear idea which ones are offering greatest protection. The good news is the manufacturers are already putting bets on which one's likely to be the vaccine, and they're already working out how they can scale up production of vaccines once we know which ones are the ones we will roll out. So that's happening in parallel, which is incredibly exciting and really shows enormous commitment around the world again by all the different partners to get this happening.
We believe that no European Union citizen should be denied entry to another EU country, says the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, who, in an effort to establish a common approach of all EU states to the free movement of people within the bloc, is calling for a greater use of testing and quarantine rather than closing borders to certain nationals.
Today, the Commission is proposing a common approach on any measures restricting free movement to our member states. First, we are proposing a common color code. Citizens need to be able to clearly identify the risk areas across Europe. Our agency, ECDC, will issue every week an updated map based on the information that national governments provide. On this map, every region and country would be green, orange, or red, depending on the epidemiological situation. Second, we also propose a common approach to the restrictions that are introduced for travelers that come from red zones. We believe that no EU citizen should be denied entry to another EU country. Instead, we recommend governments to use testing or quarantine. Testing should be the preferred option to make it easier for people to travel.
China is working to introduce a negative list for cross-border trade in services by the end of this year in order to promote institutional opening up in the services sector, an official of the Ministry of Commerce has said. In recent years, trade in services has become increasingly important and dynamic in international trade, and China's services trade has particularly seen rapid growth. Since 2012, China's services trade has grown at an average annual rate at some 7.8%. 3.7 percentage points higher than the global growth rate, according to the Ministry of Commerce. Services trade in China was over 5.4 trillion yuan, which is $775.6 billion in 2019, ranking the second in the world for 6 consecutive years, the ministry has confirmed. China is confident that its renewed respiratory disease expert Zhong Nanshan will contribute to the world battle against the COVID-19 pandemic after his nomination as a member of a World Health Organization expert group, said a Chinese official on Friday.
Academic Zhong Nanshan is an authorized medical advisor in China, specializing in the prevention and control of serious infectious diseases and owns a high prestige in the field. We believe that his professionalism as well as his rich experience will be helpful, and he will make positive contributions to the work of the expert group convened by the WHO. As the COVID-19 still spreads around the world, responding to the pandemic remains the first priority of all nations. Therefore, countries and regions around the world should make concerted efforts and allow the WHO to play its central coordinating role in dealing with the pandemic.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Cyprus President Nikos Anastasiades denounced on Friday Turkey's aggressiveness and huge talks to resolve a road over maritime borders and gas drilling rights, warning especially Mediterranean tensions risk destabilizing the region.
Turkey is acting in a provocative way in Cyprus, in all the area actually, putting the stability and security of the whole region at risk. As I told you, in particular, Turkey's continued illegal drilling operations within Cyprus' exclusive economic zone have led to an intense militarization of our neighborhood. I would like to say that it is not our aim, the sanctions. Our aim is to see that through a dialogue we can reach a settlement which will be absolutely compatible with what the international law is saying. And so dialogue is the most and best way. But at the same time, they have to realize that they have to be abided by the international law, not to interpret the international law according to their own expansionism.
Emergency crews scoured rubble Friday for a possible survivor in Beirut after the detection of a pulse drew crowds hopeful of a miracle 1 month from the devastating explosion. A specially censored device had detected on Thursday a pulse beneath a leveling building between the hard-hit port of Beirut, raising hopes that a survivor could be found more than 4 weeks after the disaster that killed at least 191 people and hurt more than 6,500. 1 month on, 7 people are still listed and missing. The spokesperson for the UN refugee agency, UNHCR, says that more than 24,000 people have fled their homes in the past month due to the renewed violence in Kasai, in the Democratic Republic of Congo. In Katande, in central Kasai, clashes between two communities over mineral and timber resources worsened throughout August. The United Nations Refugee Agency said violence in the south-central region forced 1.4 million people to flee in 2017, and it is concerned that renewed tensions could trigger another wave of mass displacement.
The newly displaced report killings, rape, torture, looting, and burning of the homes in the recent weeks. Dozens of people have arrived with injuries. There are many children, women, and elderly among the newly displaced. In an ongoing relief effort, UNHCR has so far distributed items including plastic sheetings, blankets, soap, cooking kits to more than 4,000 people. Thousands have also received shelter kits and cash assistance to buy food to meet their most urgent needs. The newly displaced report
South African Health Ministry registered this Thursday 2,420 new COVID-19 cases in the last 24 hours. According to the information, the tally now stands at 633,000. Out of those, 554,887 recovered from the disease, while the death toll stands at 14,563, with 174 new deaths in the last 24 hours. South Africa continues to be the most affected country in the African continent and the 7th worldwide. In Nigeria, at least 10 military died after a terrorist attack by the Boko Haram insurgent group. Local media informed that the troops of Nigerian army fought militants from the Boko Haram after the insurgents took them by surprise. In addition to the dozens of deceased military, several soldiers resulted wounded. Boko Haram forces took 2 vehicles from the country's militia. The Boko Haram terrorist group has fought for years the Western style of life in an intent to establish the Sharia in the northwestern Nigeria. That's why most of the attacks are attributed to Boko Haram in the country. And this September 4, we are celebrating the 50th anniversary of the electoral triumph of the Popular Unity in Chile, led by Dr. Political and Revolutionary Salvador Allende. With this celebration, we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Remember to join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Laura Palmeiro. Thank you for watching.
Desierto al silencio en mi puerta, nebulosas oscuras apagadas miradas, hombres de pánico y grieta destruyen el canto el mismo que amaba. Su cuerpo andamiaje de sueño, obreros y llamas, el llanto y la rabia, señales de humo que anuncian la traición se hace clara. Me corrompe la me corrompe la magia. Monumento, palabra a la suerte, si mañana la muerte hace oscura mi casa, su heroísmo y acero de historia, unos miles murieron, otros han cambiado su cara, otros han cambiado dejo atrás nuestro mar que me baña, la estación del exilio, su nueva palabra. Ya cantaba un juglar en la tierra, repitióse la escena de traiciones y guerras, de bronce, del fuego, del sudor del minero. Se erigieron estatuas, sembraron la muerte, sin vestir uniforme, por la patria.